You guys seem to like the idea of checking out slightly older consoles, which is a great thing. I also find it interesting to see what sort of things still work or don't work anymore when it comes to streaming services, online services, and things of that sort. Today we're going to take a look at the PlayStation Vita and see how it tackles modern demands. It's a bit weird saying that since it's not old. Personally, I don't even think of N64s or PS1s as old. While games can be timeless, internet functions usually age the worst, so let's see for ourselves. Just so you know, yes, I'm aware that you can hack it, but I just want to show a standard unit for this purpose. I have a PSTV reserved for potential future modding, but who knows if I'll ever get to that. This is my PlayStation Vita. I really like it. It's a first-gen model, so it's got the OLED screen that looks good when new. Too bad that OLED screens deteriorate over time. I haven't used mine that much, so it still looks really good. I won't go into the history of the Vita. I've done that much more comprehensively in the past. Let me tell you why I haven't used my Vita that much, though. I bought it just before the second-gen models came out in 2014. Back then, the PlayStation platform was the go-to for anime games, with PC ports being quite rare, so I figured I should get a Vita. I already had and still have, of course, a PS2, 3, 4, and PSP, so it seemed like a logical path to take. The timing seemed right because the first Neptunia Rebirth game was due to be released, and I wanted to see what sort of improvements there were. Of course, there were other games too, like Senran Kagura Shinobi Versus, that interested me. What I didn't foresee was how prevalent PC ports of anime games would be in just a short while, and the PC has always been my preferred platform. What happened was that I eventually settled into a pattern. First, I bought limited edition Vita games, played them a little bit, and then waited for the PC version to come out where I would play them for real. That pattern continued all the way till the last couple of years. Sometimes I do feel a bit sad that I didn't make that much use out of the Vita, but then again, I did Platinum Neptunia U, so it's not like I never used it. The first thing I tested was to see if I could watch YouTube videos. Well, the app is no more, so in that regard, no. Pretty odd to have lost support for something like that. You can still watch YouTube through the built-in browser, though. It works relatively well. I thought it'd be clunky, but I didn't notice anything that was really off. It is worth mentioning that 60 frames per second video is displayed in 30 frames per second. Depending on what you're watching, that may be an important detail to know. I don't know what the resolution of the video is that's being played back, but the Vita screen is 960 by 544. My guess is that the video plays back at 480p, which is probably the reason why 60 FPS videos are played back at 30, since YouTube only plays 60 FPS at 1280 by 720 and higher. But who knows? It didn't really look pixely like 480p though, so it's just a guess. Honestly, something like a phone probably works better for YouTube for most people, but if you find yourself in a scenario where watching YouTube on a Vita makes sense, you can do it. Since we're on the topic of browsers, it's not the greatest, but better than the Wii U or the PS3 browser. The problem is that it's too old for some websites. For example, the Nintendo site doesn't work. Bit of a weird one to try out, but that's just something that came into my head and I wanted to see if it works. A site that I always try out, since it runs so slowly, is the Patreon site. It's kind of tragic on the PC in terms of performance, ever since they redesigned it, and so far every console browser has had a tough time. It's not ideal on the Vita either, but from all the consoles I tried, it's the best so far. Still didn't load my posts though, so that can be considered a bit of a fail. Something else I wanted to see was if Twitter still worked. To my surprise, it does. I was a bit worried about clunkiness, but I didn't notice anything weird there. The app is responsive, and I never notice any hesitation or stuttering when I'm, just going through all the different functions. Everything seems functional. I can tweet, look at my feed, look at my lists, and DMs work like you'd expect. Opening images does take you to the browser, which is a bit annoying. And when you're making a post, it still thinks the character limit is 140. Up next is Twitch. This doesn't really work that well. Firstly, you can't use the touchscreen. That wouldn't be a problem if the controls were a bit better. There's no video quality selector, and I haven't been able to find a way to display chat. Overall, I think you'd be better off watching Twitch on another device. There's a Netflix app, but I don't use Netflix, so I don't know. Presumably it works since there's an app. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments what the experience is like. More importantly, Crunchyroll seems to work just fine, The app looks the same like it does on pretty much every other console. I complained about the no touchscreen thing on the Twitch app, but I'm fine with the Crunchyroll app not having touchscreen controls. I guess it's because it looks and controls the same as the home console apps. Again, there's no quality setting to speak of, but I don't see any soft edges or anything, so I guess it just downsamples a 720p feed to the Vita screen size. It doesn't look like 480p at all. Just for fun, I wanted to see what the camera is like. Long story short, not exactly what I'd call quality footage. Resolution is only 640 by 480. In the late 90s, my computer monitor had a native resolution of 800 by 600. So yeah, let that sink in. The pictures and videos look pretty crappy. Most cell phones of the time were better in basically every way, except if you had maybe like a flip phone or something. But I guess it's good if you want to make a mid to late 2000s style YouTube video. One nice modern convenience feature is that you can connect Bluetooth devices like headphones. That's a nice thing to have. The PS4 can't do that. It also has a regular 3.5mm headphone out port. You can transfer music onto the Vita and use it as a music player. Video as well. Since Vita memory cards are expensive, I bet most people probably don't have that much space to spare, but nevertheless you can use it as a multimedia device if you want. Or of course you use those, what are they, adapters for SD cards or something? I know that some people don't use the actual Vita cards, and so they can, use like a proper storage system that isn't mandated by Sony. Anyways, I find the productivity tools kind of amusing. It's clear Sony wanted to include basic smartphone functionality into the Vita, hence the reason why there was a 3G model. There's an email app, which doesn't seem to accept any of my Gmail accounts. Not really that big of a deal. I've lived till now without email on my Vita. There's also a calendar, which works fine, I suppose, but not that useful when you consider you can just use your phone or basically most any other more convenient device. Not to mention it doesn't seem to sync to anything like Google Calendar, so what's the point? Of course, the most important thing about consoles is how well they play games. For a handheld system, I think it covers the basics very well. It has an excellent controller layout that's almost exactly like a proper controller. It's only missing triggers and push-downable analog sticks. The graphical quality to screen size ratio is also good. A lot of graphical flaws aren't all that apparent. It's a very different story with the PSTV, since it's so much easier to see all the wonky bits on the larger screen. The Vita didn't capture the hearts of the masses, but it certainly did with people into anime games. A small but loyal group of players managed to keep the system afloat here in the West. I noticed that whenever Neptunia Rebirth DLC gets talked about, there's always people playing the Vita versions complaining that they can't get the new add-ons. So that seems to reinforce my line of thinking that people who still use the Vita nowadays are really into the system. More mainstream uses for Vitas also include various older downloadable PlayStation games in the PlayStation Store. Remote play often gets mentioned. I don't use it because I don't have any need for it, but it's something that's brought up in the comments quite passionately. So obviously there are people who feel quite strongly about it and like it very much. I think Sony could have made the Vita into a good PS4 companion device, with remote play being one of the key features. But that didn't happen. It's a bit of a wasted opportunity. I played some Super Neptunia RPG with PS4 Link just to refresh my memory on what that's like, and it worked well enough around the house. It's a turn-based RPG, so I didn't really notice much of a delay, and the platforming bits didn't feel strange at all. That would have probably been another story if I played a more action-oriented game, but honestly, I wouldn't do that, because then I'd just be annoyed with the lag. I guess it's good for people who can't be on the TV the PS4 is connected to, but I still don't like that there's a bit of lag, not that I expected there to be none, and neither do I like the compression artifacts. But it seems like Sony did the best they could with it, because it's certainly not as severe as it could be. I imagine things are probably a bit different if I was connected to a less than stellar internet connection that isn't in my house. Like if I was away from home and, tethered with my phone, or it probably wouldn't work at all if I was like at a Tim Hortons or something. Sony also stopped giving out free Vita games with its PlayStation Plus subscription a few months ago, but everything else like online store support and game patches is still active. In terms of online play, I'm sure there's still some that play multiplayer games. I don't think I even own any multiplayer Vita games. I did a quick search and saw a video by someone named Mystic who took a look at what online gaming on the Vita is like right now. It's a very recent video, and it seems like a good indicator of what the state of online Vita gaming is. So overall, what do I think of the Vita? Well, you already know that. I like it, even if I don't really use it that much. How useful is it these days for most people? It's obviously always going to be good for games, but when it comes to multimedia stuff, I don't think it's that great. Something like a phone or a tablet is usually better from a resolution standpoint anyway. Usability and battery life is usually better as well. Things like the camera, email, and calendar aren't too useful. And neither is Twitter, though at least it works properly. When it comes to the PSTV, my opinion is similar. Most people have something that is able to stream content at a higher quality and from a bigger number of sources. But hey, if you have a TV free that you'd like to watch YouTube on or something and have a PSTV laying around, why not? It's silent and it's super tiny. Just make sure the cables don't pull it off into the abyss behind your TV. It's really light. So that's the PlayStation Vita and by extension the PlayStation TV. It's a very interesting system. I know a lot of you subscribers are fans of the Vita, so post in the comments what you use it for, how you use it, and what you like about it. As always, thank you to all who contribute over at Patreon. You're a great help when it comes to running this channel. Check out the Patreon page if you want to help out too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.